this evening. You have all had a brief lesson in the mindful meditations. This is a way in which you can focus yourself on that which you wish to focus. And this can bring you a great peace and great happiness. It can bring great relaxation to you. And in this relaxation, within this peace and this happiness, the tranquility that you experience when you are meditating, you will find healing, that your body can heal itself. And so that healing is accomplished in every way, that you may need it or you may desire it. You don't even have to specify it or talk about what needs to be healed. If you wish, you can make affirmations such as how you are feeling wonderful, that you are full of energy, that everything that you want comes to you quickly and easily, that you have clarity of mind. You can make these kinds of statements, that you can see success in everything that you wish to do. And so we recommend that you avail yourself of this simple meditation. Try to do it in every day, or perhaps 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Just simply pay attention to what is going on inside yourself, in your head, around you. Pay attention to your breathing or your thoughts, and enrich your life in this way. There is another benefit to meditation. If before you go into meditation, you have questions that you would like answered, you can think of those questions. Just think of them, maybe say them out loud to yourself, and then go into your meditation. Now, sometimes those answers come through in your meditation. Many times they will not. But if you ask them again and again, you may suddenly find that answer in your head. Additionally, even the first time, you may find that someone else gives you that answer in a statement or something they say. It can be coming from a stranger, it can be coming from a friend, but suddenly you get the information that you need so that you are informed and blessed with that knowledge. And so I recommend this as a daily practice to you. And I am ready now to take any questions that any of you may have. Do you have any questions? Please just speak up.
I noticed you said something about asking questions before you think of a question before you meditate.
Yes.
What I was wondering was, all right, I know we ask dumb questions sometimes, and like, I mean, if we ask something stupid, like, I don't know, am I going to get, I don't know, what's something next week or whatever, or if you're asking something about the physical world and what you're getting and not getting, or may have, or like, will you get this job that you're going for an interview for, or something like that? Are those questions you should be asking, or is it more on a level of, a spiritual level?
Well, you can certainly ask if you will win the lottery next week, but if you simply wait a week, you will have the answer.
This is true.
Those kind of questions you can ask, but it would probably be more helpful rather than ask will you get the interview for the new job that you are hoping to gain, is that you ask something a little bit more specific, like how can I make myself more attractive to new potential employers? And where can I find this job? Rather than asking such an easy question that you will find the answer to yourself in the normal course of time.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yes, I mean, you can ask the questions, but you will soon find out the answers for yourself. If you have
Right.
put in a job application and you don't hear from them for 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you can pretty much conclude that they may not be hiring you or asking you to come in for an interview. So
Right.
how to find the information that is most valuable to you is to simply think about what kind of information do you need to really attract what you want to attract.
Right. Okay. I got you. Okay. So stop asking for a prediction of yeah,
Now I
well, we all
understand.
have a tendency to do that, well, what's going to happen if this happens, or what's going to happen if that happens, and then you're just asking for a prediction, but like you say, you'll find out eventually anyway.
That's correct. In many instances, you will find out the answer simply by simple deduction for yourself. So you will figure it out yourself in time. But yes, I know the tendency to ask for predictions, and that is why I do not give too many predictions. I would rather give you pieces of information that would help you to achieve your goals and your desires in life and might help you to make yourself more happy. How to make yourself more happy is an endless question that can be asked over and over again for yourself. You don't need to ask me that in particular, because if you ask that in meditation, you are more likely to get an answer coming from someone else, or just notice that, oh, this makes me happy. I can do this. And the answer will be there for you in your head. And that is still spirit speaking to you.
Okay.
So, a simple question such as, how can I be happier? Is a very helpful one, because you might find the answer to many, do I want to say problems? But people develop habitual ways of thinking, which sometimes cause them unhappiness. Believe it or not, people often spend a great deal of time thinking about what they don't have, or the hurtful thing that someone else said. And these things make you unhappy. So, how do you make yourself happier? Well, simply stop thinking about that thing that made you unhappy in the first place, and think about something else, and think about something that will make you happy if it's possible. What can I do to be happier today? And that will make a difference in your life. And that is what you truly want. You want your life to become better and happier and more prosperous. And what's the meaning of a prosperous life? Well, is it just having lots and lots of money? We know people, famous people, who have lots and lots of money, but they often don't seem to be very happy.
That's true.
They do all kinds of things which don't really help them. Maybe they have plastic surgery to try and improve their features or their looks or their figures. They are looking for happiness outside of themselves, when true happiness is found in themselves. They just have to be content with the way they look.
Mhm.
Maybe they look perfectly wonderful the way they are. Why are they trying to improve their looks or look different than they are?
Because they don't think they look good.
Yes, well, you look in the mirror every day and you see the same face. It is a common face to you, and you don't think about it. Even the most beautiful women in the world look at themselves and don't see beauty. They are simply seeing the same old face
Mm-hmm.
because, as you well know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
not on the face.
That's right. Okay.
And so people are perfectly beautiful
Mm-hmm.
to the people that love them.
Yeah, true. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, do you have another question?
Of course, I always have another question.
Well, I'm glad because it is your questions which help stir other people's questions.
All right. This was one that actually somebody else mentioned because they heard it that we were talking about the other day about how, oh dear, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Turn that off. Come on, off and off. Come on. 1 second. Okay, got it.
No problem. The meeting had quite a bit of problem with the electronics today also.
Oh, okay. We were talking about parts of the body being affected by, what we think and what we do. This person said that somebody said that neck problems mean that you can't that you can't see other people's point of view. Does that connect?
Well, that it can be part of it. You've heard the expression that they are stiff-necked. And what does that mean to you? That usually means that they're inflexible, that they
Yeah.
don't see things from other people's point of view, that they won't change their mind. They hold themselves stiffly and are not open to many things. So also neck problems that is the extent of neck problems. Your stiff neck can be because you don't want to change an opinion. You don't want to change the way you are thinking about something. And so you can wake up one morning with a stiff neck and you can't turn your head the way you want to because you are refusing to accept someone else's point of view, or you cannot change your mind or accept something that is happening. Many times people come across great difficulties with governmental bodies, maybe the police, maybe the courts, maybe it can be anything, the schools. There are very many rules coming from these places, and sometimes people do not like the rules and they get annoyed at these things, and that can cause a stiff neck.
Oh, so there is something to it. Okay.
Yes, very much so.
Well, pretty. Okay. Oh, but what about, you wake up with a stiff neck and you say, oh, well, it must have been the way I slept or something, or maybe you
Of
were
course.
sleeping in. I mean, so that's a possibility too, that it has nothing to do with you being not seeing somebody view or something that you're supposed to be seeing.
Well, chances are, if you examine what's going on in your life, you may see an inability, an inflexibility somewhere in your life. And people do attribute it to their pillow. Now, would they have slept that way on their pillow if they did not have that attitude? Chances are, I mean, the pillow wasn't the real reason it happened, but if you have that sort of attitude, you are sleeping probably, if you are sleeping at all, You may be having difficulty in being comfortable. You may hold your pillow a different way. There are things which you inadvertently cause yourself a stiff neck because of where your mind is.
Wow. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay, cool.
Well, that's what it amounts to for most of these things that I have talked about in the past. You bang your hand and you hurt your hand. Well, are you having trouble manipulating something, getting something done for which you use your hands, or that requires some amount of dexterity? Is there something happening in your life and you just accidentally bang your hand and it hurts a little bit and you're over it? It's just a reflection on something that's going on in your mind that shows up in your body. Many of these things are very little and very subtle, so you don't always notice them at all.
Oh, what about the bigger ones? Like people wake up with the Charlie horse, and I know that can be pretty bad.
Yes, well, some of these things, are we talking about a Charlie horse that lasts till morning and during the day? Or are we talking one that just wakes them out of their sleep and they get up out of bed and they walk just a minute and it goes away?
Or more than a minute. That from the ones I've heard, sometimes hours before they can get it to go away. And then they try putting everything under the sun on it, of course, to try to make it go away.
Right. Well, if they are the long kind, you are different, and it's in your legs. Now, what do your legs do? They carry you forward. So are you accomplishing things in your life? Maybe something just isn't working out for you the way you want it to, no matter how hard you try. And so you can come up with this inability to walk easily and have pain in your legs because your legs support you also. So are you feeling not supported by someone else? And so your legs do not want to support you. You get your own spasms in them. So it's a reflection of the way you are thinking.
Wow. And it even does it in the middle of the night. That's wacky.
Yes. And sometimes, of course, if it just hurts your legs and you get out of bed and they go away fairly quickly, it may even have something to do with your dreams.
Oh, okay. That makes sense too.
And
yes, in your dream, you're not going forward.
Yes, that could be it, or you were having another problem, or who knows what's going on in your dreams. And these are just symbols, and it goes away, but it does wake you up and cause you pain for at least a short time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
It has to do with understanding the breath. And
the breath in meditation?
No, the breath in life and in meditation. I wanted to know, to me, I was contemplating this, and we always say that breath is our own breath, my breath. However, it seems to me it's not totally my breath, because while I can choose not to breathe for a period of time, unless I drown or something, I eventually have to breathe again. That's not a voluntary, for the normal person, that's not a voluntary action that can be accomplished. So I'm thinking that the breath really is more of a borrowed thing that energizes the body into life. Obviously, when the breath leaves, there is no more life in the body, although that life still goes on through the breath somewhere.
And of course.
So the question is, where does the breath come from? And the easy answer is, of course, God. But it's, the breath is our divine self. Some people might call it the soul. the breath it's the eternal part of our consciousness, and also to a degree. So maybe you could talk about where it comes from and what it is.
I think you are confusing more than one thing. You are joining together in ways that are not accurate. Let's see if I can sort this out. So you are speaking of the breath as being the breath of life. And so you are speaking about breathing life into, we will say, the fetus that is growing within a woman's body. And at some point in time, you are wondering when the soul is coming in.
No.
And you are speaking of the breath as the soul.
No, not necessarily. No. I mean, I'm just curious where I'll try to break it down in a simpler. I gave you the preface to introduce the topic, but where does the breath come from?
This is, again, I am not comprehending your question, because the breath that you are speaking about, it appears to me, in two different ways. You are speaking of it as the holy breath, in the sense of the beginning of life. And that is each person's life. And you are also seem to be including breathing, which is a different kind of something that must happen. When the infant first comes into the world, he opens his mouth and inhales air for the first time. And that is his breath of life. Or at that point in time, he will continue breathing, and it will be a purely automatic thing, particularly among infants, because they would not think and cannot think yet of even holding their breath or not breathing. It is contained as a directive, if I would use that word, within the body. In a sense, all your automatic actions in your body, such as the heart beating and the lungs breathing, and even your seeing and hearing, if they are not defective organs, that these things are automatic, and they are a type of breath, particularly the heart beating and the breathing exercises. Without those two, there is no continuation of life. So you can look at that in that way, or you can look at it in a, I'm not sure I want to say metaphysical way, but looking at the breath in a spiritual way as being the soul, which becomes your breath of life, unless the soul is breathed into the body at some point in time. And that, in a sense, is the breath. If you are talking about that breath, you can look at it in that way, that your soul is breathed into the body. Of course, the parents do not do that. That comes from God. And He has already set up this system by which that the soul enters into the body. But that is frequently called a breath of life, as well as those first breathings of the infant, which is the breath of life. And when you stop breathing altogether, then you have lost life, and the soul departs. So I think that you are looking for something that is, you are searching for something that is more difficult thinking that it is more difficult, more separate than the two things that I have mentioned. But these two things are really the instruments or the manifestations of the breath. I think you were hoping for a different answer rather than what appears to be a simple one.
No, actually, I wasn't, I had no clue in a sense, because, it's something that we take for granted all day, every day, most of the time. And I just know that in meditation, I find that it's linked to my higher consciousness. So,
You mean when you breathe in while you are in meditation?
yeah, well, when I put my energy and focus upon it, it doesn't, it's something that's very present. So that, it also heightens, focusing upon it heightens my awareness of my God consciousness. So, it just seemed like everything was kind of linked together with that.
I see now what you are thinking about, and that has to do with the mindfulness meditation of observing your breath. In observing your breath, you can develop a consciousness which is so focused that you become aware on an extremely sensitive basis of your connection to God. That is frequently an effect of someone who has developed through mindfulness meditations by looking at their breath. Since meditation will always, at some level, bring you into a higher awareness than you normally experience. It does not matter whether you are meditating on an action such or a position such as a yoga. In a yoga position, when you get into that position and you hold that position with total awareness, that can be a meditation, and that can bring you again to a higher awareness of your connection to the divine, as well as the oneness of all of creation. It does not matter if you are looking at your breath and paying attention to the breath, as we have already spoken. This too can bring you to that place. But it is because you have used this technique and you have become fluid at this technique that you then move automatically into an awareness of your oneness with God. But you can achieve that in many ways, including sitting on a mountaintop, in a cave. It does not matter.
Mm-hmm.
It is the practice that brings it about.
Okay, thank you.
You are most welcome. Are there other questions?
Okay, I gotta ask you something about aliens.
Okay.
I'm not, somebody was told to get in contact with their aliens or alien, whatever. Now, when we think of aliens, we obviously think of little green men or whatever, something that, or some other entity from space, but not an entity that's particularly spiritual. We usually think of them as another, entity, like, all right,
Yes.
we're human beings and there's something else. So my question is, what are you being told to contact your alien because you're really, they really want you to contact spirit, and you contacting it or imagining that it's an alien would be more acceptable to you? Is that what's going on? Or are we really contacting people from other planets?
It's an interesting question because your explanation, such as contacting spirit and he takes the form of an alien, is as valid as the other ways of looking at it. And when you are in your human form on life, depending upon how you have been brought up and the thoughts that you have encountered while you are growing up or had while you were growing up, can predispose you to an understanding that there was probably life on other planets, and there would be a desire to get in touch with those life on other planets in other universes. Now, thought, interestingly enough, can instantaneously flow through space. So it may be possible for some people to get in touch with their alien, being some being that someone imagines is more intelligent or has useful information to you who are living on Earth, even though that individual may be in a society, may be in a shape and form, may be on a planet that you would find totally inhospitable to your life form, but is perfect for them. Somehow they think that that will be helpful to you. And so I would say that for the most part, it is an illusion to think that getting in touch with an alien from a different planet would be of value to yourself. Now, if you happen to get in touch with spirit, and those who have been incarnated on this planet in this way are familiar with society and know the difficulties of being alive in society and managing your own life, I would find that getting in touch with spirit to be much more valuable than trying to get in touch with an alien to ask his advice. And I think it is the imagination of individuals who are simply predisposed to have the thought that aliens are more intelligent and better off than human beings. And by the way, aliens on those planets, if you were to understand their language, they would refer to themselves as human beings because that is how you would translate whatever they called themselves as. You know, whether they called themselves as the Yamawa, and it would still be translated as human being.
Oh, wow.
That is how languages work.
Oh, okay. But that doesn't mean they're like living there and breathing the same stuff we are. It's because each planet is different, right?
Yes, exactly. And there are, of course, planets that are very similar to Earth, but many planets have life that are not similar to Earth. And just because Earth developed a certain type of lifestyle, of which a human being is one of the highest, we must remember that many other animal species are quite intelligent, such as elephants and dolphins and pigs.
Mm.
That these animals are very intelligent on their own, and as a result, they just have not the facility of fingers and the thing to work and create things in the same ways that people do. After all, a dolphin only has fins.
Right, right.
And so they cannot develop levels of technology the way the human being has done. And the human being is quite a flimsy animal. It's not particularly strong. It had to be smart in order to survive. Exactly. And had to come up with ways to defend itself. And so it didn't have teeth that were strong enough to kill, but it could pick up a branch and defend itself quite well with a heavy branch or a sharpened stick to kill what it needed to kill, whereas other animals have to fight for this and run, be fast, and have strong teeth and have great strength in order to get their food and the things that they need. Of course, some animals, of course, eat grasses and things that grow naturally, but
they can still bite.
each one is different. So when we look at other planets, there is life of various different types. And while you're imaginative people in films often will show you different shapes and sizes for aliens, and they may not be accurate, but it is actually somewhat truthful.
Okay. Now, you said that they're also classified as human beings. So does that mean when their body dies, they go into spirit the same as us? Same spirit area?
Yes, I understand
Wait.
your question. I have never contemplated that question before as to whether or not the same life cycle occurs. But as inasmuch as God has created life, and life is on other planets, I do not know whether they enter into a spiritual world as such, or whether yes, it would seem to me that they all would have that which you call a soul. And so there would be a similar mechanism that might be more similar to the animal mechanism that exists for animals to incarnate and reincarnate as they do, because when an animal dies, his soul simply goes back to the oversoul or the major soul that is for his type or group of animal, and exists there until it is breathed into the life of a new, we will say, monkey, or a kitty, or a dog. And when they die, their soul goes into the canine or the animal soul there. And when it is time, it is reincarnated in new babies, the same as us.
So I'm gathering when we transitioned, as you call it, that we're not going to be able to actually talk to beings from other planets that have also transitioned.
You may be able to do that if you desire. I have not had a desire to do that, so I cannot tell you whether or not it is possible.
Oh, okay.
I do not know what you will achieve by doing that.
Curiosity killed the cat.
I understand that one, but when you're already in spirit, you can do that quite safely.
That's good. Okay.
And so I'm sorry, I cannot answer those questions, but I would imagine that the mechanism is very simple, very similar on those planets and those solar systems as it is on Earth.
Okay.
So that you would have souls that would enter and bring life, and you would have a place similar to spirit.
Mhm.
But we seem to stay within our own comfort zone.
Oh, okay.
Let's put it that way.
Mhm. Well,
That
well, also there's a must be some kind of overwhelming desire for us to, like you said before, contact beings from other planets, because it's a thing on Earth. Uh, that's what we always want to do, and of course we're starting space travel, and they want to exaggerate that and make it Star Trek. So yeah, I mean, if we could, I mean, maybe someday we're going to be in space. I don't know if we're going to find other planets inhabited or what, but suppose we do.
would be interesting.
Hmm.
It would be similar, I would imagine, to going to foreign countries.
Yes, yes, I believe that.
Yes, and seeing people that look different from ourselves, from yourself, such as you have the different races. And so it would be very similar to that. We would meet. But at this point in time, such travel is not possible. And I will say, you say it is natural that everyone thinks this, but
Mhm.
if you think back far enough, people were not as curious. Well, they were curious about other planets, but without the aid of telescopes, they had no way of seeing those even enlarged. So that people did not think a long time ago, did not think so much about what's in the heavens. They ascribed that to the gods.
Yeah, true.
And they looked at for constellations. They looked to the stars to see what they could learn about themselves being on Earth, the constellations, the planets, because they were always larger in the sky than the stars. And so therefore they were able to retract. They noticed a great deal of information about the stars and the planets, but I do not believe, they did not contemplate whether there was life there. They
Right.
looked at those as just heavenly bodies that affected the earth, and what kind of effect did they have on the earth? And so that is how astrology came to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Alrighty. Okay. Thank you.
you are most welcome. I thank you for your questions. At least we have had something to talk about. Does anyone have any other questions?
Hi, Norma, it's Mike.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Hey, what's up with President Xi? Is he planning on invading Taiwan?
Is he planning on invading Taiwan? So you are asking me.
Will he invade
He
Taiwan?
has problems within his own country. And while he might like to invade Taiwan, he would like to take them back and have them part of his country. There are obstacles to him pursuing such an enterprise at this particular time. And so he simply cannot do it right now. So therefore, it must wait. So I cannot say that he is planning on doing that. He wishes many things. And so he often makes decisions which cannot be carried out or have ill effects and must be postponed. So he has problems in his own country. Not that he is worried that much about his people, but there are realities of these things. And he has been, he is, what can I say? It's hard to explain someone who is not logical. As logical as the Chinese people often are, he does not feel that he has any boundaries and that he can do anything that he wishes. So therefore he makes unusual statements and threats, and seeks to intimidate when he cannot take immediate actions, because like a bully, intimidation can often work quite well, and it works for him within his country and his people, because he is all powerful. And so therefore he thinks he can do it elsewhere, and so he can threaten. But at this point in time, he cannot take actions. So
When you say he has obstacles, is that internal political problems?
many different problems, both maybe not so much political, because he is the all-powerful one, but practical,
Okay.
such as he needs to have food, he needs to have fuel, he needs to equip his soldiers, and while he has many guns and many soldiers, he can do this, but it is the other practical stuff which he cannot quite utilize at this time.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. Was
Okay.
the protest on January 6th, was that when it got out of hand, was that a setup by the feds?
I do not believe it was a set up by the feds, but there were certainly other peoples involved who took advantage of things that were said by the president to cause problems and cause trouble. But I do not see it as being a plan of the federal government or the FBI, or I think that is what you mean by the feds.
Yep.
I do not believe that was, I do not see that as having been a political plan instigated by the feds. But there were definitely other people who took advantage of the things the president said he was going to do and said, now this is a perfect time for us to cause trouble. So
Okay, thank you.
they did.
Okay.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? Well, all is quiet.
Hang on, I got one.
Okay.
Michael, this is a Mike kind of question. It seems to me, but it almost seems obvious, but is Russia or is Putin going to be invading the Ukraine?
That has a greater probability than Xi Jinping invading Taiwan. at this point in time. One moment, please. He would like to dominate in the Ukraine and perhaps an exit. And he is contemplating his possibilities. Although he does not fear President Biden at all, since he assumes that he did not make a decision to try and interfere with any actions he would take in Ukraine, but there is the possibility of other people becoming upset and taking actions. So therefore, and on top of that, it does not seem necessary to do that, to invade Ukraine at this time. It is like two children calling one another names on the playground. They don't want to get to a fight at this point in time, so to speak. To fight while you're in school does not have a good outcome. And so for some reason, I believe the time is not right.
Okay, that's interesting. I know NATO would be very upset. Ukraine is somewhat, from what I understand, I don't know the whole story, but Ukraine is considering becoming, I guess, either part of NATO or the EU. And that would greatly upset Putin and the Russians, because that would be a real split from their heritage and culture, which they feel, they're all kind of united in the old Soviet Union mindset, except that Ukraine is, I guess it's a democracy. They've been electing their own, government officials for a while. So they've had a taste of democracy, and they're also an industrialized, successfully industrialized, and that's what Russia really needs, or Putin really needs. So anyway, that's my take on it.
It seems like it's just not the time to do this right now. Mr. Putin is very astute at judging circumstances and taking chances which benefit him. If he does not feel it can benefit him, he will not do it. But as you say, since there is the possibility of this country joining NATO or the EU, then he may consider that it is worth taking the risk. But it will not be easy. There is something there which poses a difficulty that is difficult for him to calculate. So it is, for the time being, not going to happen. That does not say it will not, but as an imminent thing, it is not. Are there any other questions? Then I think it is time for me to say good night. So I give you all my blessings. Good night.
Good night.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. Is there anything else? Then I guess it is time for me to say good night to you all. Remember, I love you. Good night.